Oh, I wasn't even recording. That's good. No, he came up by himself. But now, now he's leaving. No, wait. Hi, boy. You're gonna join me today? Ooh, look at him. Look at this. Look at this boy. This old boy. Oh, okay, goodbye. Yeah, anyway. Okay, so that's how I'm gonna start my video. That's how I'm gonna do it instead. What? What is it, boy? He wants to go back inside even though he just came outside with me. I was going to record a video on Saturday, but stuff just came up, got a little too busy with other real life stuff, and I just couldn't get around to it. So now I'm doing it today on Monday, and uh, I wrote down all my notes on the computer again this time. I wrote my notes basically in an essay style, so I'm probably gonna be um, just kind of reading it off word for word, and maybe like making some little offhanded comments or something, or not offhanded, but like just squirrels. Uh, just commenting on it a little bit. So I worked on this for like several days, so they are my words. They're nobody else's. I did them all on my own. The only parts that aren't my words are the what I'm about to get into, which is the diagnostic part of gender dysphoria, which I don't know if I said that's what my subject is on. I'm going to be talking about gender dysphoria, and my essay really is about just like what I think really is gender dysphoria, and like what makes people have it, and even like why kids have it. But these are just my thoughts. Uh, I don't really have any sources today except for the diagnostic parts. So I got really nothing to back me up except for my own observations on things and, uh, just, experiences as well. I'm starting out, like I said, with uh, defining what gender dysphoria is, like on the DSM-5 pretty much. I mean, I don't have the physical copy or anything, but this is what a lot of like WebMD and other psychological websites that I tend to go on, this is how they define it. Gender dysphoria is a feeling of distress arising from an incongruence between a person's felt gender and assigned sex. Yeah, that's it. The incongruence between a person's felt gender and their assigned sex. So, gosh, this is gonna be a long video, so I'm probably gonna cut it up into 2 bits probably. So anyway, these are the little boxes that you need to check off in order to be diagnosed with gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria disorder. Okay, anyway, so point 1 is noticeable incongruence. There it is again, there's that word. My Word doc says that's not a word, so actually let's in space congruence, in hyphen congruence, congruency, incongruous, incongruity, incoherence, incontinence. Not a real word. Anyway, uh, between the gender that patient sees themselves as and what their classified gender assignment is, I can't get over it. Just the assignment makes it sound, it just reminds me of like homework assignment. I can't, gender's not a task. It's not a task you have to do. Anyway, should call it something else, please. Next one is an intense need to do away with his or her primary or secondary sex features, or in the case of young teenagers, to avert the maturity of the likely secondary features. An intense desire to have the primary, secondary sex features of the other gender. Oh, that's something that I wanted to point out, is that every time I was looking for, like, how do psychiatrists diagnose kids and teens and adults, and every time I've looked into like all these different sources, they all kind of say, well, basically they do say the same thing, but the weird part is like a lot of the points are the same, they sound the same, basically mean the same thing, and it just kind of feels like somebody was making up terms as they were going along, and a lot of these people who wrote these points too, they also like had really bad grammar, and that was a lot of like really reputable sources too, and it just kind of made me go, huh, I wonder why like this is one of the only ones where they're like the diagnostic just doesn't seem to really add up, in my head at least. Anyway, that's what I wanted to note on that one. A deep desire to transform into another gender, a profound need for society to treat them as another gender, a powerful assurance of having the characteristics, feelings, and responses of the other gender. And then the final point is the second necessity is that the condition should be connected with clinically important distress or affects the individual significantly socially, at work, and other important areas of life. And then I looked into what's the diagnosis for children, and these ones, I also found the same problem with like a lot, like they would say like girls want to dress up as men, or just something grammatically weird, or they're repeating themselves. I don't know. I just kept on finding these sorts of things. It's just like, and then I would be like, okay, well, I don't like this one, so I move on to the next one, and copy paste it to my document, and then it's just like, and then I look over it, and I'm like, wait a second, this looks weird, and so I had to edit this one as well. It's kind of inconvenient and weird to me. It's like they don't really know what they're talking about in a way. So anyway, for children, this is what they need to check off. Consistently saying that they are really a girl, even though they have the physical traits of a boy, or really a boy if they have the physical traits of a girl. The next one is an intense want to be the opposite gender, or persistence that he is the opposite gender or a different gender other than the one he was born as. Which, when it comes to children, I feel like they would say, I want to be a bunny. I'm a bunny gender. Or, I don't know, whatever's on TV, they'll be like, I want to be that. Anyway, the next one is boys have a prevalence toward cross-dressing or wearing clothing that is seen. I think that's a B. That is seemingly more feminine. I kind of find that funny. Seemingly, I don't know. It's kind of funny. Girls prefer dressing in what would be considered boys' clothes, and are powerfully opposed to dressing in regular girls' apparel, which, at that point, I feel like I'm just being nitpicky with the grammar, but they could have just said pretty much the same thing with boys and girls, and just switching the roles and stuff, but whatever. Girls feel more intense than boys do. When it comes, so the next one is, when it comes to creative play or making up games, the child has the desire to be in the other gender's role. The next point is, the child would rather play with toys or be included in the activities that are usually deemed appropriate for the opposite sex. Next point is, desire to play with children of the opposite sex. Next point, the child will have an intense dismay with the sexual parts of his or her body. Next one is, desires the primary/secondary sex features that are equal to the experienced gender. Experienced? And then I wrote a little note saying, post-puberty, I assume, I don't know, because girls don't they don't get the secondary sex characteristics until they've hit puberty, so that's probably what they mean. And then the last one is, okay, the B is near my foot. The child has extreme anxiety and stress, as well as problems with functioning in social circles, school, and other situations. So that's it for the written part that I copied and pasted. The rest is all me. So yeah, this is the part where I'm pretty much just gonna read out what I wrote. And so my first question toward all this is, what makes someone believe that they do not fit their birth sex? And my simple answer to that, which I will elaborate on later, is like primarily the reason, and there's other reasons too, but primarily is bullying, trauma from uh, estrangement from family, isolation from peers, school staff, friends, and family. Feelings of inferiority and self-hatred can lead to gender dysphoria, and I will elaborate on that in a minute. So, yeah, before I jump in, I wanted to explain. It was tickling my feet. It needed to go. I wanted to explain my gender dysphoria first, which I don't think that's something that I haven't really gone into yet, so I wanted to like pretty much elaborate on that now. Gosh, what a perfect opportunity. So I don't know, I believe I've probably said this before too. So I was a gender non-conforming child, and I haven't said this part because both of my parents were. And like my dad wasn't like visually like, I'm gonna dress like a girl. It was more like he's gonna dress more like a kind of more of like a flamboyant kind of gay man sort of in a way. He it was mostly in the way he behaved rather than what he wore. And behavior is enough to make a kid go like, oh, that's how we're supposed to act, and they they turn out to be gender nonconforming. Anyway, yeah, so I grew up with that, and I didn't exactly know what gender and sex was as a kid. I'm pretty sure most kids don't really know. Actually, they have absolutely no capacity to understand what it is, because all they can really understand is the aesthetics to something, and they're very super aware of what's fair and what isn't. So when a kid is actually complaining about something, in this case gender, I'll get into it in a moment. Jesus, I'm getting ahead of myself. It'll pretty much explain it as I'm going here. Yeah, so there was no such thing as me worrying about puberty and genitals because I just wasn't aware of sex. Not the act of sex, but the whole body, you know. Again, I write sometimes I write little tiny jokes, stupid jokes. And I'm like, what kind of kid is worrying about genitals? How many genitals have they seen to the extent where they hate theirs? It's funny, but it's just like, I wasn't concerned about mine because it didn't cross my mind that those things were connected. Like the treatment of boys is different because they have a willy. That didn't cross my mind. But I'm guessing, had I known, I probably would have been like, ooh, I want to pee. So I didn't fit in with any. Ugh, I didn't fit in with anyone as a kid and teen, and I had a strong preference for avoiding traditionally feminine things. Recently, I remembered that as a kid, despite being raised gender neutral, my mom expected me to be more responsible than my brothers. She tended to want to put me in charge of cleaning up and expected me to join her with grocery shopping and go out to family events. And I was like, ew, responsibility, gross. How dare you? Meanwhile, my brothers were allowed to stay at home and pretty much do nothing. I found that to be really unfair. Like I said, kids are very, very aware, hyper aware of what's unfair and what isn't. I wanted to be on the computer which, they were on the computer and I wanted to be on the computer too. And I was addicted to that. I was always on Club Penguin. I wonder if that's still around. But yeah, that's what I was on. And MSN, I was on that too. That's not a game, but yeah, that was there. And Gaia Online, that's what I was also on. Anyway, I think this also contributed to my dislike for femininity. Because seeing my brothers get, like, the ability to just stay at home and not have to go grocery shopping with mom, or have to, clean up the living room and everything, and your room, and blah blah blah. So, because they were boys, I was like, in my kid brain, being a boy just seems so much more relaxing. You don't have to do anything. And then being feminine just seems so extra and burdensome. And extra is like not just the responsibility parts, but also like you have to act in a certain extra way. I didn't like that. I didn't like some of the reactions that other girls in my class would have. I'd just be just like, that just seems so much. Why do we need to do that? We can just react like this. We can just do that. And then I gendered it, I guess. Anyway, moving on. I strongly disliked makeup, dresses, and skirts. Wow, what a boy, right? I wanted to hang out with my older brothers and do what they did, like what they liked. When it came to video games and, like, other toys of some kind, that wasn't, like, obviously gendered, I guess. I'd always choose to play a boy character or look masculine in some way. Not like, you know, big and beefy, but just like, oh, that's a boy. Yeah, short hair, that's a boy. I wanted to shave my head and be free of the hassle of long hair, which is something I talked about in some other video. I don't remember which one, but I wanted that gone. I wanted to be treated like a boy because it seemed easier to me, like I said. My aversion to feminine things set me up perfectly to later believe I must therefore be a guy. If I had been my own psychiatrist, looking back and looking at the diagnostic criteria, as what I just mentioned before, I'd say that I did have gender dysphoria because I checked off most of them. Not all of them, but most of them. And that at age 16, upon discovering transgenderism, my gender dysphoria cranked up. It cranked up to 11. Cranked up in its intensity to the point where I did strongly desire to have the primary and secondary, mostly secondary, sex characteristics of boys, men. Yeah, so it was like it was intense. It was just like boom, here, like I had it before, and it caused me stress and stuff, but it wasn't like earth shattering to me. It was only earth shattering when I was 16 and I discovered it, the whole transgender thing. The novel transgender ideology sucked me into its black hole and bent my self-expression through my life to fit the mold of a trans man. Like I said in another, my revision detransition video, where it was just like I bent everything to fit into it, no matter the cost, because I just wanted to believe it so badly. I wasn't at all aware of any feminine characteristics that I may have had. I was focused squarely on masculinity, so yeah, I ignored anything that would make me seem feminine and make, my family doubt that I was a dude. As a teenager while transitioning, it was remarkably far easier to make friends with male peers, and that reinforced the idea that being trans was working, which is, like, if it hadn't worked, I probably would have, detransitioned a lot sooner, and probably detransitioned before I would get into cross-sex hormones. But anyway, obviously, as a girl, male friends had always been difficult to come by. And making female friends, I just never really related to them quite well, and they seem to just not really understand me very well. Regarding my body dysphoria, or rather dysmorphia, I vividly remembered, oh jeez, this one's like kind of makes me cringe a little bit, kind of makes me a little sad, but I did it, and I vividly remember drawing with a regular ballpoint pen X's over my breast while crying hysterically because I wanted them off so badly. I could never risk taking off my binder anywhere, which is weird when I think back on it because I didn't have much to speak of before testosterone. They were so tiny. I could have just I could have just gone around with just wearing like a sports bra or a training bra or something, and I would have been flat as a pancake. But in my mind, they were so huge. I needed a binder. The binder was the only solution. Yeah, see, it's like it's mental. It's all mental. It's all in your head, man. Um, I wouldn't take it off anywhere, especially during sleepovers, no matter the company, whether they knew I was biologically female or not. And I'm probably gonna stop here and then have my part two.